1. The ability you were born with. For most of human history, intuition was not considered mysterious. It was considered normal. Hunters tracked animals not by logic, but by a quiet inner sense of direction. Ancient navigators crossed entire oceans guided by subtle signals in the day environment that modern science still struggles to fully explain. Tribal healers could sense illness before symptoms appeared. They called it many things: instinct, inner knowing, the whisper of the soul. Today we call it intuition. Yet, in modern society, something strange has happened. The very ability that once helped humanity survive has been pushed aside, dismissed as unreliable or irrational. From an early age, we are taught to trust analysis, statistics, and external authority, but rarely our own internal signals. But what if intuition is not irrational at all? What if intuition is simply a different form of intelligence, one that operates faster than conscious thought? Consider the moment when you meet someone for the first time and instantly feel trust or discomfort. You cannot explain it logically. Yet very often that feeling proves accurate later. Or the moment when you suddenly know the right decision, even before analyzing the options. Where does that knowledge come from? Modern neuroscience is beginning to explore a fascinating possibility. Intuition may be the result of pattern recognition operating below conscious awareness. Your brain processes millions of signals every second: microexpressions, tone changes, environmental cues, memories, emotional states. Your conscious mind cannot analyze them all, but your deeper brain can. And intuition might be the language through which that deeper intelligence speaks. But if intuition is real and powerful, why did modern culture slowly teach us to ignore it?
Chapter 2: The system that silenced inner knowing. The suppression of intuition did not happen suddenly. It unfolded slowly over centuries as human societies became more structured, more bureaucratic, and more dependent on systems that demanded predictability. Institutions prefer what can be measured. Numbers can be recorded. Data can be verified. Procedures can be standardized. Intuition cannot. And because it cannot be easily quantified, it gradually became viewed with suspicion. Modern education systems reflect this shift. From early childhood, we are trained to rely on explicit reasoning. We are taught to solve problems through step-by-step analysis, to provide explanations, to show our work. But intuition rarely shows its work. Over time, this pattern repeats thousands of times. Trust the textbook, trust the instructions, trust the experts, but rarely trust yourself. Yet history shows something fascinating. Many of the breakthroughs that shaped civilization did not emerge from linear logic alone. Scientific discovery often begins with intuition. Before a theory is proven, it is first sensed. Nikola Tesla once described seeing complete machines in his mind before building them. Mathematicians often report that solutions appear suddenly after long periods of unconscious processing. Artists and composers describe ideas arriving fully formed, as if from somewhere beyond deliberate thought. These moments are not accidents. They are examples of intuition operating in highly trained minds. Ironically, the more expertise someone gains in a field, the more they begin to rely on intuition again. After years of study, pattern recognition becomes automatic. Decisions that once required analysis begin to happen instantly. This is why experienced firefighters sometimes sense danger before seeing it. They enter a burning building and suddenly feel something is wrong. Moments later, the floor collapses. Their brains detected subtle environmental signals, temperature shifts, smoke movement, sound changes, long before conscious reasoning processed them. The decision felt like intuition, but it was actually extreme experience compressed into a single instant. This raises a fascinating possibility. What if intuition is not the opposite of intelligence? What if it is its highest form? Chapter 3: The Brain's Hidden Intelligence. The human brain is one of the most complex systems in the known universe. At any moment, it processes enormous amounts of information, far more than conscious awareness can handle. Your senses collect millions of data points every second: sounds, movements, facial expressions, environmental cues, emotional signals. Your conscious mind only notices a tiny fraction. The rest is filtered, categorized, and stored by deeper neural systems operating below awareness. This is where intuition begins. Neuroscientists often describe the brain as a prediction machine. Its primary function is not merely reacting to the present, but anticipating what will happen next. Every experience builds internal models. Your brain learns patterns, how people behave, how environments change, how events unfold. Over time, these patterns become incredibly detailed. When a familiar situation begins to form, the brain can often predict the outcome before it fully appears. That prediction is what we experience as intuition. Consider how quickly humans read emotional signals. A subtle tightening around someone's eyes, a slight hesitation in their voice, a micro-expression lasting only milliseconds. Most people cannot consciously describe these cues, yet they often instantly feel whether someone is trustworthy or deceptive. In psychology, this ability is sometimes referred to as thin slicing, extracting meaningful conclusions from extremely small fragments of information. Experienced negotiators, therapists, and investigators often develop powerful intuitive accuracy through this process. They cannot always explain how they know, but their pattern recognition systems have been trained through thousands of interactions, and this is where intuition becomes fascinating. It suggests that part of human intelligence operates far beyond conscious language. Logic requires words. Intuition operates in patterns. It is faster, more holistic, and often more accurate in complex environments where variables cannot be fully calculated. In other words, intuition may be the brain's high-speed decision engine. Chapter 4: Ancient cultures understood this long before neuroscience attempted to study intuition. Ancient cultures already recognized its importance. In many traditions, intuition was not seen as mysterious or supernatural. It was considered an essential dimension of human awareness. Ancient Greek philosophy described different forms of knowledge. One of them was nous, direct understanding that emerges instantly, without step-by-step reasoning. Philosophers believed this type of insight allowed humans to grasp truths that could not be reached through logic alone. Eastern traditions also emphasized inner perception. Meditation practices in Buddhist and Hindu systems were designed not only for spiritual development, but also for refining awareness of subtle internal signals. Practitioners learned to observe thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations with extraordinary precision. Over time, this cultivated a heightened sensitivity to intuitive impressions. Indigenous cultures around the world also relied heavily on intuitive awareness. For hunters, farmers, and navigators, survival depended on sensing patterns in nature, changes in wind direction, animal behavior, subtle environmental shifts. These signals often arrived before visible evidence. A skilled tracker could follow an animal through dense forests not only by footprints, but by reading almost invisible disturbances in the landscape. To an outsider, it appeared magical, but it was simply an extremely refined, intuitive skill developed through years of experience. The modern world often separates rational thinking from intuitive awareness. Ancient cultures rarely did. They understood that human perception operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Logic interprets information, intuition senses it, and when the two work together, human intelligence becomes far more powerful. Chapter 5: Why Intuition Feels Uncomfortable Despite Its Usefulness. Many people feel uneasy trusting intuition. Part of this discomfort comes from the nature of intuitive signals themselves. Intuition rarely arrives with explanations. It does not present a detailed report or a logical argument. Instead, it appears as a subtle shift in perception, a feeling of certainty, a sense of caution, or a sudden clarity about a situation. Because these signals emerge quickly, they often feel mysterious, and anything mysterious tends to be viewed with skepticism in modern rational culture. You may sense that a relationship is unhealthy long before you admit it consciously. You may feel that a business opportunity is risky even when the numbers look promising. Ignoring intuition is sometimes easier than confronting what it suggests. This creates a psychological conflict. Logic searches for reasons to justify the desired outcome. Intuition quietly points toward deeper patterns. When people ignore intuition repeatedly, something interesting happens. Their sensitivity to it begins to weaken, not because intuition disappears, but because attention shifts away from it. Human perception strengthens whatever it focuses on. If someone constantly listens to external opinions, their internal signals fade into the background. But when attention returns inward, intuition gradually becomes clearer again. It is like a muscle that strengthens through use, or a language that becomes fluent through practice. Chapter 6: The Difference Between Intuition and Fear. One of the greatest challenges in developing intuition is distinguishing it from fear. Both can produce strong internal reactions. Both can influence decisions, but they arise from very different sources. Fear is reactive. It emerges from perceived threats and often triggers immediate emotional intensity. The mind begins generating catastrophic scenarios, imagining dangers and negative outcomes. Fear speaks loudly. It demands urgent action. Intuition behaves very differently. It is usually calm, subtle, precise. Instead of creating emotional chaos, intuition often produces a quiet sense of direction. A simple internal signal: move forward, slow down, Reconsider. Experienced decision-makers often describe intuitive insight as a moment of stillness. In the middle of uncertainty, everything suddenly becomes clear. There is no panic, only recognition. For example, skilled surgeons sometimes report intuitive awareness during complex operations. After years of experience, they begin to sense when something in the procedure is slightly off, even before obvious signs appear. Pilots often experience similar moments: a slight sound, a small vibration, a subtle instrument reading, and suddenly they know something requires attention. These intuitive responses are not emotional reactions. They are rapid interpretations of patterns built through experience. Understanding this difference is crucial. Fear narrows perception. Intuition expands it. Fear pushes toward avoidance. Intuition guides toward alignment. Learning to recognize these differences allows intuition to become a far more reliable guide. Chapter 7: Reawakening Intuition in the Modern World. If intuition is natural to human beings, the real question becomes this: why do so many people feel disconnected from it? The answer lies in the structure of modern life. Today, most people live in environments saturated with constant stimulation, notifications, social media feeds, endless streams of information. The mind rarely experiences silence. Every moment of quiet is quickly filled with external input. But intuition rarely speaks through noise. It emerges in moments of mental space. This is why many intuitive insights appear during simple activities: walking alone, taking a shower, driving long distances, or lying quietly before sleep. In those moments, the analytical mind relaxes just enough for deeper cognitive processes to surface. The brain continues working in the background. Patterns connect, hidden relationships emerge, and suddenly, an idea appears that feels both surprising and obvious at the same time. This phenomenon is sometimes called incubation in cognitive psychology. When the conscious mind stops actively searching for an answer, subconscious processing continues, reorganizing information in ways that deliberate reasoning cannot easily achieve. The result often appears as intuition. Many highly creative individuals deliberately design their lives around this process. Writers take long walks. Scientists step away from difficult problems. Entrepreneurs schedule periods of reflection rather than constant action. They understand something essential. Insight requires space. Silence is not the absence of thinking. It is the environment where deeper thinking becomes possible. And when people begin intentionally creating that space again through meditation, journaling, quiet reflection, or simply reducing constant digital input, intuitive awareness often returns surprisingly quickly. Chapter 8: Training the Intuitive Mind. Contrary to popular belief, intuition is not a mysterious gift that only a few people possess. It is a cognitive skill, and like any skill, it can be strengthened. Research into expert decision-making shows that intuition improves through 3 key factors: experience, reflection, and feedback. Experience provides raw material. Every interaction, observation, and challenge adds to the brain's pattern database. Reflection organizes that material. When people pause to review events, asking what worked, what failed, and why, the brain begins refining its internal models. Feedback confirms accuracy. When intuitive impressions are tested against real outcomes, the brain learns which patterns are reliable. This is why professionals in high-stakes environments often develop extraordinary intuition. Emergency physicians can sometimes sense a patient's condition before diagnostic tests confirm it. Chess grandmasters instantly recognize complex board patterns that beginners cannot see. Their intuition is not magical. It is compressed experience. But there is another layer to intuitive training: self-awareness. The more clearly someone understands their own emotions, biases, and psychological triggers, the easier it becomes to distinguish true intuition from internal noise. Without self-awareness, intuition can become distorted by personal fears or desires. But when emotional awareness increases, intuition becomes sharper, cleaner, more reliable. It begins to function not as a vague feeling, but as a precise internal signal, one that emerges from deep cognitive integration rather than impulsive reaction. Chapter 9: When Intuition Changes Lives Throughout History. Some of the most pivotal decisions have been influenced by intuition. Leaders, explorers, inventors, and creators often describe moments when they sensed a direction before they fully understood it. Consider the story of the mathematician Srinivasa Ramanujan. Many of his groundbreaking formulas appeared to him suddenly, without formal proof. Later, mathematicians confirmed that many of these intuitive insights were mathematically correct. Or consider entrepreneurs who recognize opportunities before markets fully form. They cannot always explain their reasoning in the beginning. They simply feel that something significant is emerging. Over time, evidence catches up with the intuition. This pattern appears repeatedly across different fields. Scientists sometimes describe a sudden flash of understanding after months of confusion. Musicians hear melodies internally before writing them down. Athletes react to complex situations faster than conscious calculation allows. In each case, intuition is functioning as a high-speed pattern recognition system. It synthesizes enormous amounts of information that the conscious mind cannot fully articulate. Of course, intuition is not infallible. It can be influenced by bias or incomplete experience. But when combined with careful reflection and rational analysis, it becomes an extraordinary decision-making tool. Logic tests possibilities. Intuition suggests where to look, and together they form a powerful partnership. Chapter 10: The Future of Human Intelligence. As technology continues to evolve, humanity faces a fascinating question. What role will intuition play in the future of intelligence? Artificial intelligence excels at processing enormous quantities of data. Algorithms can identify patterns across millions of variables with astonishing speed. But human intuition operates differently. It integrates emotional awareness, personal experience, ethical judgment, and subtle contextual signals that are difficult to quantify. In many complex human environments, negotiations, creative innovation, leadership decisions, these intuitive dimensions remain essential. The future may not belong solely to those who think the fastest. It may belong to those who can integrate multiple forms of intelligence, analytical reasoning, emotional insight, and intuitive awareness. Rather than suppressing intuition, modern science is beginning to study it more seriously. Neuroscientists now recognize that subconscious processing plays a crucial role in decision-making. Psychologists study how expertise transforms intuitive accuracy, and leaders increasingly understand that strategic insight often emerges from combining data with deeper perception. The hidden power of intuition may therefore represent not a relic of ancient thinking, but an essential part of humanity's cognitive evolution, a form of intelligence that bridges logic and creativity, analysis and awareness, knowledge and wisdom. And perhaps the greatest discovery is this: intuition was never truly lost. It was only waiting for us to listen again.